How many, for those of you that can understand me right now, raise your right hand. For those of you who cannot understand me, raise your left hand. Oh boy. Okay. Maybe for those of you who understand me, and maybe you're sitting next to someone that doesn't understand, you can translate a little bit, okay? So I was asked yesterday, was it yesterday? When was it, Natasha? Miroslav? Day before yesterday, when I was...
Miroslav, day before yesterday.
Day before yesterday. The bass instructor, what's his name? The older guy, 82. Someone invited me here, okay? Someone invited me to... Chairs right here, you guys. He came to a performance I did with my trio. I'm on tour in Europe now with Joe Manis on tenor sax and Charlie Doggett on drums, myself on bass, just a trio. And we performed on February 29th at the Philharmonie with the orchestra, a 40-piece woodwind and brass orchestra. And with a 40-piece woodwind and brass orchestra, my compositions, and also soloing was Yevgeny, is that right? Yevgeny Deberovsky, yeah, on Vibes was playing with us too. And so last night we did a concert in Bella Certa, and the day before that we played a concert Chatonia Philharmonie Hall. And so I have been traveling as a jazz musician for the past 50 years, 50. Supporting a wife and 4 children, although I lost a child. But my wife didn't work, so I was making the income by playing music. So I've done this for over 50 years and have been performing, you know, in Nigeria, in China, all over Europe, South America, you know, all over the world, playing my music. I compose everything, and I only play my music. I played jazz standards for many years. I played with a lot of great players in my life. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. Chick Corea has been on my albums, and Jack DeJohnette, and Joe Henderson, and Freddie Hubbard, and Dexter Gordon, and Stan Getz. And, I mean, that was my school. I didn't go to a formal school like what you have here. When I came up playing jazz, there were no schools. It was the school of the street. It was learning with the great musicians. And that's how you learn. And you learn from practicing and being serious about what you were doing. Understanding in my own life, it wasn't just enough to have a good time and to socialize. I had to have a deeper meaning about playing music. Who am I? And what is this all about? Why do I have a love for playing music? Who created music? Who created me? who created the desire in me to play music. I needed to have answers to these questions, so I would have a foundation on which to build my career in music. When you build a home, when you build a house, you have to build it on bedrock, what we call in America bedrock, on something strong, on a strong foundation. So when the winds and the rains, when the troubles of life hit you, everything doesn't crumble. Because if the foundation is strong, then it will support what you've created. For instance, as an example, how many people here have heard of Charlie Parker? Raise your hand. How many people here are Charlie Parker? Okay. Charlie Parker was like a Mozart living amongst us, a great creator of the alto sax, of jazz music. He was taking music where it had never been before. Him and Dizzy Gillespie and Max Roach, more Dizzy and Charlie developed the whole bebop, the core of the bebop scene. So Charlie Parker was a genius, but he died at the age. He died at the age of 34 of drugs and alcohol addiction. Why? Well, because he had serious problems with depression, anxiety, oppression. That being a genius, being a great genius wasn't enough. Being a great musician was not enough. So his foundation was not solid enough to support the depression and the things that he was going through. And so all that beauty, all that stuff that he had created crumbled at the age of 34. Let me condense this. You might think this is not about music, but this is about music. It's about sustaining the gift that you have in music. So stupid to have a gift and to be a good musician and have no foundation to sustain what your desires are. Boy, there's a lot of activity here. I mean, okay.
It's a lot of student now.
I know,
Yeah.
but you know, in New York, folks, if you're late for a gig, there's about 150 people in line to take your place. So part of being a great musician is being on time. Being at the gig maybe an hour before the gig starts, you know. This is kind of normal now with most great musicians. Let me just state one more fact about what I've been talking about, and then what I'd like to do is have a question and answer where you'll ask me questions, and I'm not so presumptuous to think that I can answer all your questions. I will try. I've been doing this for many years, playing music and teaching, and so I've learned a few things. Although I knew more 10 years ago than I know now. So I don't know if you can understand that concept, but from this vantage point, we look at the sun and we say, oh yeah, we could take that sun and place it inside Kiev. But the closer you get to the sun, the smaller you become and the greater the sun is. So it's like that with music. The closer you get to the source of music, the smaller you become, and you see that you really don't know a lot. In fact, very little. That's what I meant. I knew more 10 years ago than I know now. So let me just share with you this one premise. as an example of what I've been talking with you about. People in this life, in the world today, all people, everyone, even Americans, come up with belief systems that support their lifestyle so they don't have to be accountable for what's right and what's wrong. People come up with their own belief systems to support their lifestyle so they don't have to be accountable for what's right and for what's wrong. And that's a danger, because then you have no moral guide on which to sustain your life, you know. So let's, you know, I'm a bass player. I have an old acoustic bass made in France in 1795. It was used in an orchestra that Beethoven once guest conducted. But I have another instrument I play. How many here saw me perform in Kiev this time? No one. Well, okay, well that's great. Teachers, shame on you. You have to let the students know when artists are in town performing so they can go and learn. I don't know if you can see this instrument here, but I play it as my acoustic bass, but it's amplified, of course. I can't put a pickup on my acoustic bass. I can't do that to my instrument. So that's the instrument I play. Plus I play little piano. Every musician should know the keyboard, right? Because all the harmony is right there in front of you. But I compose music, and I think I have about 700, little over 700 compositions on record or CDs. So I've done a lot of writing in my career, you know. I'm 78 in May, so I've been alive for that many years. So you learn stuff, you know. You also forget stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, that's part of older age, is you forget some things, but you know, there's more substance. Anyways, engage me. Ask me questions. Like I said, I'm not so presumptuous to think I can answer everything, but I'll try my best. Now, if no one raises their hand, if you just raised your hand, that's great. You've cut the cake, you know, cut the ice. But if no one raises their hand, I'll just point to different people and engage. Like I might point to you, and then you'll have to ask me a question. So this way, but this is fair. This way, everyone gets a chance to be a part of the clinic, you know. So yes, sir. But please speak slowly and pronounce your words, because my English is not that good.
Okay, you said about guideline, moral guideline, and what's this guideline for you?
Moral guideline for me. Well, I hesitate to use the word Christianity, because it's such an abused term, and people hear that word and they get a whole panoramic view of hypocrisy and other things in this life. But I have a very strong faith in Christ in my life as a Christian. I don't belong to an organized church, but I do have fellowship with different Christians. But I'm very selective about that. And it's a personal relationship, and the moral guideline is stated for me in the Bible, and then in the Old and New Testament, in answer to your question. Okay. Other questions? Yes. See, I warned you I was going to ask a question.
Захочете спросить, спрашивайте.
Я думаю.
Let me ask you this. You're a music student, yes?
Yeah.
What instrument?
Bass.
Bass? Okay, good. Are you playing jazz or classical or both?
Jazz.
Jazz? Why? Why are you playing jazz?
I like the music.
The feeling or what are,
I like improvisation and jazz music.
yeah, that's the core of it. Tell me, how long have you been playing bass for?
Oh, 3 years or
Okay.
is
3 years, about 3 years in that zone. Yeah. Share with me a problem that you're having right now.
I have problem in improvisation in
Like improvising on a song, like a standard tune?
yeah, I with solo.
Solo, yeah.
I think problem in my what I scared and
You get nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's a problem.
yeah.
I know. And you know, you're not alone. I mean, I think many people, many of us have a nervous feeling. And that nervous feeling comes from thinking about what other people are going to think about you when you're playing. So what you have to do, we have to find a way to differentiate between the people and the music. So before you play, you have to make a decision in your heart, in your mind, what you want to do. Do you want to be nervous and think about people?
Yeah.
Or do you want to listen and play music? So you have a decision to do. Now, how many here have ever been depressed or angry and picked up their instrument to play and it kind of took all that anger and depression away? Do some of you have experienced that? Yeah? So we know that music is healing. Music is healing. If I have a headache, in America we have a little pill called Excedrin. It's like aspirin. And if I have a headache, I take 2 Excedrin, and maybe 20 minutes my headache's gone. I take it with a glass of water, and it's something you can buy over the counter without a prescription from a doctor. It's not so powerful, but it will take the headache away. So the whole idea is you want to get something in you that will take this nervousness away. Music is healing. So instead of taking the Excedrin in the mouth, you take the musical note in the ear. We have the eye gate, the nose gate, mouth gate, ear gate to get inside of our system. So when you go up to play, you have the decision, I'm going to think about the audience, or I'm going to listen to what's being played. And notes come packaged in melodies. So as you start to play, you listen to the melody, the note that's being played. It goes in the ear, and it takes about maybe 5 seconds, and all that nervousness is gone. But you have to make the decision whether you want to receive the music in the ear or if you want to think about the audience and be nervous. You have to make the decision. I can look at the Excedrin on the table with a glass of water, and I can say, yeah, I know that'll help me. And I just stand there and do nothing. But if I take the Excedrin, put it in my mouth, take the water, the headache will go away. If you listen to the note, if you listen to the music while you're playing, it will take that fear away. okay? The other way to think about it, what's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa. Lisa?
Liza.
Liza. The other way that I say to think about it is you can only do your best. You can't do any more. Don't compare yourself with other people. That's a horrible trap, and that helps create fears about playing. I'm giving you different perspectives now about your problem. Don't compare yourself with other people, because you're not other people. You're you, and you can only do your best. No more, no less. And if that isn't good enough with people, so be it. They can leave. You can only be you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The other perspective. Come on in, folks, so I can keep going. In America, they had the Academy Awards, and a lot of time there are hosts that will interview the actresses about the gowns that they're wearing at the Academy Awards, which is the movie award, the film award in America. And a lot of the gowns that the actresses are wearing are large 5 figures to 6 figures, like $100,000, $200,000 for a dress. It's crazy. But the reason why is because it's an original, one of a kind. Well, that's what you are. You're one of a kind. There's no one else in this whole world like you, or like me, or like anyone else in this building. This is the very best thing we have going for us as musicians. One of a kind, originality. And how do we get that originality out? There's a couple of ways. So I'm going to leave your problem now and move on to this next topic about how we can get our originality out, okay? But did those perspectives help you a little bit? Do you think about that?
Yeah.
You know? That's the very best thing we have as artists, as musicians, is who we are as individuals. How do we get this out? Okay. There's a couple of ways. One is through composition. Composing music to please you, no one else. Now in the pop world, in rock music, you know, Lady Gaga, for instance, is an amazing musician, amazing singer, but she's in kind of in the pop world, so she needs to find out what people want to hear. And then the marketing takes over, and even if a person doesn't want to hear it, they'll become believers through a very, I'll just say, great marketing techniques. Okay, so people like that have to think about writing music to please the masses. As jazz artists, we're more individual in that way. It's a creative art form. When I first came into playing jazz in the 60s, when I first started playing jazz, actually 58, started playing 1958 jazz. At that time, the word unique was synonymous with the word jazz. In other words, if you were going to play jazz, you had to be you were gonna play jazz, you had to be unique. That's just the way it was. If you're gonna play jazz, you're gonna be unique. It's not that way today because there's so many books out there and so many of you are reading the same book. See, everyone sounds alike and there's so much emulation going on. It's hard to find that individuality. But if each person is unique, if each person is really unique, then if you're composing music to please yourself, then you're going to find uniqueness in that aspect, as opposed to composing music to sound like someone else, or I've got to compose a bebop piece and it's got to be this and this and this. And instead of going to the piano and allowing the music to unfold, where you can kind of step aside and find out what you really like, not what you've been told you have to like. Who are you going to please? I might please 300 people here and displease 1,000 there, and then please 500 here and displease 600 there. I mean, you can't please everyone. So who am I going to please? I'm going to please me. And then the people that want to hear that music, they can hear it. If they don't want to hear it, they can go somewhere else. As a jazz artist, you don't do this as in disrespect of people, but you do it in respect of people, because you're being honest with yourself and you take care of yourself first. It's like that in the airplane. When you go flying in an airplane, for those of you who've done this, they make the announcement, the mask falls from the ceiling. They say, put on the mask on yourself first, then you can help your children. You take care of yourself first, then you're able to serve needs for other people. Or you can't buy great Chinese food in a steak restaurant and vice versa, if you can understand that analogy. The other way to get the originality out is if we are original. You know, inside this flesh here is a spirit. And when I go up to play music, I don't suddenly become a musician. Now I'm going to play music. I'm the same individual every moment of my life. It doesn't change. Whether I'm playing my bass or talking with you or talking with someone else or whatever. I'm always me. So the victory to overcoming and listening and responding creatively happens every moment of my life. So my concept about playing this music we call jazz, and I'm talking now mainly about small combos, maybe sextets on down, not big bands. That's a whole different concept. Just as legitimate, just as great, but different. Everything I practice in the practice room, when I go into my studio and I'm practicing, I'm by myself, all that practicing I'm doing should give me the confidence, the technique, the flexibility, the knowledge about chord-scale relationships, other things theoretical. All of that practicing should give me those things to be able to take my eyes off myself so I can listen and respond creatively to what I'm hearing. So everything I learn in the practice room should give me the confidence, the technique, flexibility to be able to take my eyes off myself so I can listen and respond creatively to what I'm hearing. If I'm doing that, then what's in here has to come out. In music, serving needs, listening and responding creatively to what I hear. In all musical situations, then what's in here has to come out. I mean, if I'm holding on to a concept and I'm saying, I want my music to sound this way, and I'm tight about it sounding a certain way, then that's what people will receive. A concept, as opposed to music. And the music is ever changing. That's why in my group, I have no arrangements and I have no rehearsals. They're great musicians. We come together and we just play. We listen. There are songs. I mean, my music is somewhat complex in terms of altered changes and cadences. I don't have any really 2-5-1 type of cadences in my music. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just don't write that way. And a lot of my tunes are like 17 bars or 22 bars or 9 bars, or I have some that are 8 bars, some that are 24, even a lot of odd measures. So you have a lot of 5 bars, 7 bar senior moment phrases, you know. So you have to learn how to function with 3-bar phrase. Also, I don't put a lot of emphasis on. I do put emphasis on chord-scale relationships, of course, but I'm not tied to that. When I'm improvising, I'm thinking more compositionally as opposed to chord-scale relationships. For instance, this room was built with tools, correct? But this building does not look like the tools it was built with. I don't see a harmonic minor scale embedded in the wall, or a hammer or a saw. I mean, it was made with tools, but it doesn't look like the tools. And that's kind of the challenge we have in music, is to be able to use the tools that we have to create music. Not to just take our tools and show everyone, look my tool, my chops. You know, the technique, oh man, the guy's got chops, amazing. Oh, look, this guy's a tear, he's a monster, all those chops. You know, he's showing, here's my tools, and I just say, great, build me something. The tools don't impress me. It's the music. It's the music. And to your credit, I find this more in the Ukraine probably than most other countries in terms of the passion. My mother is from Smilla. So, and my dad's father's father was from the Ukraine. Catherine the Great went to Holland, Netherlands, and brought farmers over from there to the Ukraine to show the Ukrainian farmers how to farm, when Catherine Great was in charge of things. And so my dad's father's father was from the Ukraine. So, you know, I'm one of you. I'm a Ukrainian too. My blood, you know, that's what I am. But I love the passion that the musicians have here, you know, so that doesn't seem to be as troublesome for you as it might be for young students in America, for instance, you know, even though it's an American art form. Oh, so that's some information. Let's get another question for me. Yes.
I want to ask some questions.
But you have to talk slowly. Don't mumble your words, and speak clearly, because my English is not.
First, sorry for my English, but I want to ask about. I'm a guitar player, and I know.
You're what?
Guitar player.
Guitar player.
I know a lot of piano players, bass players who have a problem with their arms, like some sickness. Like practice a lot without relaxing and do some wrong things. And do you have some tips or decision for fix this problem, or what we can do before gigs or practicing?
In terms of not having problems with your arms, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I don't know, and not everyone has that problem. There are some people that have spinal injuries, and they need to see a chiropractor, you know, a person who specializes in arms and backs, and maybe get help. I know people that have that problem, and I know a lot of other people that don't have that problem. So I think it's just determines on perhaps in your practice schedule, knowing your body and how you function, not practicing too long at any one time. Also doing exercises. I walk up in America Every day I walk up 280 steps. I live near a mountain, Mount Tabor, and then I walk for about an hour every day. So I exercise, and you know, and that might be a problem too. A person not exercising puts strain on the arms and the body. And eating right, learning to, we are what we eat, and learning to eat good foods and to get enough sleep, as I'm often told by my manager. Get enough sleep. You have to get enough sleep. This is very important, and taking care of your body that way, you know. So it comes from preventative medicine, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions? Come on, you guys. Oh, who am I going to point to? Yes.
You were just talking about how it's important to be original, right? And how do you, as a musician who's just starting out, how do you balance between being original and making a living? Because, you know, to sell music, you have to kind of fit in, right? And how do you, just not as a accomplished musician, but as someone who's just starting out, how do you do that?
Are you talking about playing standard tunes and things like that?
No.
Okay, then be more specific with me.
Maybe, I mean, mostly I play neo soul and hip hop music.
Hip hop?
Yeah, neo soul.
Okay. Do you like that?
Yeah.
Then good, do it.
How do you balance? Right? If I want to be original, then I want.
Well, you are not if you want to be original. You are original.
Of course, but that's not necessarily what sells good, right?
Well, see, I don't know what you have your focus on.
No.
Is it on selling?
No, it's making living.
Well, let's face some facts here. If you're married and have a family, your first responsibility is your family, taking care of your wife and your children. That's first. Before I was married, I never put the emphasis on trying to be famous. I never put the emphasis on making a living. I put the emphasis on the music and finding out. I mean, I shared with you, it took me a long time to find out why I was playing music, about 20 years of seeking. But once I knew why I was called to play music, then that set the precedence for everything else I did. So maybe finding out why you like music. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your goals in music? And then set reasonable goals for yourself. You know, I mean, we're all different in that way. Making a living is important. You have to be honest with yourself. And what I did is, when I couldn't play my own music and be original, I didn't sacrifice the music. I sold shoes. I did something else to make money, but I wouldn't sacrifice the music. It was too important to me. That doesn't mean I'm right. That's just the way I did it. We all have to live a life, and you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. Making living's important. You have to place the values on things you do in your life, what's right for you. What's right for you might not be right for someone else. You have to learn to be honest with yourself. And that's why I was saying, coming up with a belief system that has a strong foundation on which you can stand and function from. This is very important, because it deals with all the kind of problems you were just sharing with me right now. Does that help?
Yes, because I mean, I agree with you, and I try not to sacrifice what I like doing, what I like playing, but you know, just hearing another perspective and how other people do it. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Someone else. Yes. Sure you do. Sure, no, sure you do. Sure you do. What instrument do you play?
I play a trumpet.
Trumpet?
Yes.
Who do you like in jazz? Who are some of your favorite players?
Кто твой любимый?
Сейчас. Их много.
Are you a classical player or a jazz player?
I like Randy Breaker.
Randy Brecker, yeah. It's a good one to like. Anyone else? Have you ever heard of Booker Little?
Booker Little. What name?
Booker Little. Booker Little is to trumpet what Babe Ruth was to baseball. It's like the guy. What you need to do, if you don't know these players, you need to go on YouTube. Maybe go to your teacher and find a list of great trumpet players. There's a whole bunch of them. And then listen to them on YouTube. You can watch them, you can listen to them. YouTube is a great source for learning. There has to be a hunger in you, that calling. Okay, we're going to do something right now so I can make a point, illustrate the point. And don't judge me now and think that I'm a little nuts. Well, I might be a little bit. But I want you all to hold your breath. I'm going to count 3. I want everyone to partake. And I'll count 3 and then we'll go. And everyone's going to hold their breath for as long as they can. Okay? You try that? Okay. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Did you do it? Who took a breath? Okay, let me ask the girl in the pink. Why did you breathe?
I won.
Why did you breathe?
I won.
You had to. Okay, listen to what I'm saying now. This is important. She took a breath because she had to. That's what it's like to be called to playing music. You have to. There's no way you can do anything else. You have to do it. That's what differentiates between just having fun and having the need. So if you have the need, and this is real for you, go to YouTube and start listening to all these great trumpet players. Listen to them. They'll inspire you. The feeling to jazz, there's an album out called Blue Skies, Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, Ed Thigpen, and Itzhak Perlman on violin. Now Itzhak Perlman, I don't know if you're aware of him or not, he is a force of nature. He's arguably one of the greatest classical violinists of our time. And Oscar Peterson wrote out all the notes for his solo. Well, you know, Itzhak Perlman, it's no problem with him. He can read anything. And he reads all these beautiful lines that Oscar wrote, and they make this album, Blue Skies. Well, as you listen to it, as I listened to it, I says, what is it that's not working? because Itzhak Perlman's solo was perfect, time, everything. But then I discovered his feeling was missing. There was no feeling to what he was doing. So the feeling to jazz, which is that 2/4, it's a fa fa ba boobity ya fo fo ba do boobity ya fo 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 do. It's that feeling, it's that hearing the end of a phrase and moving on. He didn't have that. He had what Oscar wrote for him, but he didn't have the feeling because he hadn't been listening to the music. The only way you can get the feeling for this music is by listening to it. You can't not learn it intellectually. You can learn scales, you can learn chord-scale relationships, you can work on your time with a metronome, but in terms of the feeling, you have to hear the music.
Mhm.
So that's something that's missing with a lot of young people. As I travel around the world, they don't listen enough. You need to listen more. Listen, 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 listen. When I was young and involved in music, you know, I was playing opposite Coltrane, I remember at the Penthouse in Seattle. And man, there was a line of people to get in, standing out in the rain to hear Coltrane. People came from miles to hear him. You have to have this passion to want to hear these great artists that are playing. Trying to think of the bass player with Pat Metheny's band.
Steve Rodby.
Huh?
Steve Rodby.
No, not that was before. He studied with me too. It was before him. Before Steve. Electric bass player. Can't think. Anyways, he used to stand outside of Boomers in New York in the rain because he wasn't old enough to come to the club. I think he was 17 or 18 years old at the time. He'd stand out in the rain with his face pressed to the window listening to the music. He'd be out there all night long. That's passion. That's the need, you know. When I was 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, I take a bus downtown to the Caballero Club with my guitar, and my teacher, Glenn Elders, was playing in a swing jazz group, and he'd get me in backstage because I wasn't old enough to be in the club, and I'd take my guitar and play along with the band in the back, acoustic. I had to do this, you know, this is important for me. In fact, from the age of 5, I was drawn to music, you know. There was a hunger there, a passion for it, you know. Then after a while you find out why you have that passion. What is it? What is it all about? There's a whole exploration of things we go through in life. Anyways, in answer to your question, not your question, but what you shared with me, Randy Brecker's great. Randy and I did a lot of playing in the 60s when he lived in Seattle for a while. And he was telling me about his little brother, Michael, who was going to be a great tenor player someday. Who turned out to be, one of the greatest tenor players of all time. So keep listening, okay? Any problems you're having? No problems? I want to study with you. Can we make an appointment later today? What am I missing? You have no problems at all? Wow. You're the first guy I've met in this life that's never had a problem. Wow. Amazing. Wow. Ripley's, believe it or not. Okay. No problems at all playing music, jazz? One thing that bothers you, something more than others?
Don't know.
How long you been playing?
Maybe 7 years.
7 years?
No, or 8.
Yeah, how's the lip? It's okay, no problems?
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
it's okay. Have a good mouthpiece. Shilky? Do you know the name of a Bach?
Vincent Bach.
Oh, okay. That's good. Do you like Dizzy Gillespie?
So.
And Miles?
Like,
Like Miles, yeah. sometimes emulation is weird because a lot of times, there's a school of thought amongst jazz educators that transcribing solos is a good thing. And for some people it is, for some people it's not. Some people it's a trap. You emulate and then you fall into an emulative prison where you just start quoting all these other great artists. But for instance, for a person that's been in classical music for a while and wants to get into jazz, a lot of times maybe taking not the same instrument, let's say a violinist wants to play jazz, you might take a Chet Baker solo and transcribe it for violin, and just to see how he's thinking of his phrases and everything. A lot of times it can be very helpful for some people, but I don't recommend transcribing for everyone. Gary Burton, who ran the Berklee School of Music in Boston, Gary Burton, the vibe player, never transcribed. Never. I've never transcribed. And he petitioned a lot of his friends, and they hadn't transcribed music either. So it's, like I say, for some people it's very good, other people it's not. You have to know how you learn, how you approach learning. Another question, please. Yes, or another one. You're the same guy. Are you the same as you were a little bit ago?
No, a little better.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question about purpose of your music, or why you play music. Maybe if you share your example, we can understand our purpose in music.
Okay. All right, I will. I had spent about 20 years trying to discover why I was playing music. Okay? It wasn't enough for me just to have fun. It wasn't enough at that time when you're first learning, you kind of want to show off your chops, and it becomes an ego thing, which is the immaturity of a young musician. That wasn't enough. There had to be something deeper. It just had to be something more to it than just picking up the instrument and playing. Who was I? Who created me? Who created my desire to play music? My love for music? Who created music? Who created life, Everything that has an order, the stars in the sky, the planets that orbit. Everything's positioned. If one planet was off just a milliscule, it'd crash into the sun. It'd be a catastrophe. But there's order, and those stars do not think for themselves. So there had to be some intelligent order to place them there. So 20 years, I thought about this and talked with people, and did a lot of just walking and meditating and thinking about life and about my desires. And then one day in my music studio, oh, you guys, it's a long story because, it's so long. I had a coffee house, and I gave puppet shows for kids on weekends, and I would write out the script for the puppet shows during the week. And it was during this time I had a vision. Do you know what a vision is? It wasn't a vision that everything out here changed. It was a vision inside, but it was real. I saw this pool, like a small lake. But the colors, it wasn't water, it was a liquid substance. And it wasn't the colors that we see here. They were spiritual colors, and I really can't describe them because we don't have anything here that's like that. But it was beautiful. And this person came, who I saw as the Lord, had a ladle, dipped in the ladle and let the colors flow out. It was beautiful. And I asked this person, I said, what is this? And the Lord said, this is a pool I've given to you to dip in and fill the note. He showed me that the musical note was like a container. It wasn't music. It's the substance that's inside the note that touches people's lives. For instance, you might have heard a person with amazing technique and just playing this incredible kind of music, but you walk away with, you know, nothing there. You know? Which proves my point that having a lot of chops and playing all these great notes doesn't mean anything if there's no substance inside. That substance is what heals and edifies and comforts and gives hope to individuals. So the Lord said to me, he says, David, I want you to fill the note, and I want you to go forth and show the glory of the kingdom of God, not by your power, but by my power. The Lord saying, but my power, and not for your glory, but for my glory. So it took all the egocentricity away. There was no self in it, and it wasn't me. It was the Lord. And at that moment, I knew I was playing music, and I was set free. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, the truth shall set you free. And I was set free, and my music changed. It took a left-hand turn. I started writing all this different music, you know. So, what's right for me is not right for anyone else. This is what happened to me. But we're all individuals, you know. This was my experience. I've heard other people's experiences that were not mine, but they were amazing for that person, you know. But you asked me, and so I shared with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question that is related to what you've been talking about just now. And I hear a lot of musicians, especially young ones, who want to make records, and they say, look, we got this song and that song, but they do not have like a concept for the record. Because if like when you listen to a really great jazz album, you feel like there's a story in that,
Right.
and there's that substance that you've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that those musicians, they have something to say, and they want to say, but they do not know how to conceptualize it in the musical frame. Do you have anything to offer to such
Well,
people?
yeah, I think when you make a CD or record project, I mean, you haven't got the visuals with it, so everything's with the ear, you know. So a story has to be, I think, has to be told. There has to be some kind of concept, some kind of story being told. And I don't know who you're talking about or what you're talking about, but we could take examples like Bill Evans, Scott LaFaro, Paul Motion, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, or records like that, Waltz for Debbie, Kind of Blue, you know, as examples of continuity between, also the titles express a theme. I did an album called The Name of a Woman. And I remember my wife says, who are these women? You know, I said, it's a concept album, Kim. She said, yeah, But it was a concept album. So the name of the album, it's a double CD, is called The Name of a Woman. And the very first tune is called I Love You. And then it has the names of all these, Ciara, for instance, Lee Morgan tune, and Dolores, Wayne Shorter tune, and all these names of women. So the first tune was called I Love You, and the very last tune on the second CD is called My Foolish Heart. So, so it was a conceptual album. I told the story, the name of a woman. And sometimes it gives people a handle on which to hang on to. And also for artists, I mean, if you're thinking about telling the story, it's done not only with the music, probably more so with the titles. You know?
Mm.
Is that kind of what you were asking, or
Yeah, no.
is that help?
Yeah, in the ballpark at least. In the ballpark at least.
In the ballpark.
Yeah.
So you're from Scotland, Ireland?
No, I'm from Ukraine.
UK?
I'm
Ukrainian?
from over here, yeah.
So you learned in school your English?
Not in school, in private school, but yeah, I did.
Yeah. Yeah, because you sound like you're from the UK.
I know that.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. But the Americans won the war. Okay. No, I mean, the English have destroyed the American language.
Yeah, I know that. I know that as well.
That's a joke, you know, it's not serious, but you speak very well. But I
Thank you.
thought maybe you were from the UK or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Other questions? But did that help a little bit? What I
Yeah,
said?
very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Come on, guys. Someone's got to have a question. Yes. You. No, this is all right here. What instrument?
Saxophone.
Tenor, alto,
Alto.
alto. Did you play clarinet?
No.
Oh. 'Cause I mean, once you can master clarinet, it makes alto and tenor really simple. So a lot of times it strengthens your sound, I'm told, when you learn clarinet. So alto, who do you like on alto?
Cannonball Adderley, Batista Ben, and Kennigan.
And are you playing in a group?
Yeah.
Not yet. How long have you been playing?
What?
How long have you been playing?
6 years.
Are you familiar with an alto player named Leo Wright?
Yeah, I know.
Leo Wright played with Dizzy.
Is it name? Yes.
Leo Wright,
Yeah,
W-R-I-G-H-T. Leo lived in Vienna for the last part of his life. But he was a great alto player, and I just wondered. A lot of players copied him. You know, he was different than Charlie Parker.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. Problems? I mean, what troubles you? I mean, we all have it. I mean, for me, it was listening. Listening. I finally figured out in my mind, and I'm a slow learner, the theory is the easy part. Learning how to play your instrument, that's the easy part. But learning to stay in the moment 100% of the time, that's the challenge. That sound, where to go. This is reality. That sound is in the past because we're going through time. And we have clocks that measure time in seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years. Music is reflective of that time that we're going through. So learning to have good time, we're all in time. We're living in time. The only reason people don't have good time is because their minds are somewhere else. They're not listening. And learning to listen and stay in the moment 100% of the time, that's the challenge. That's the difficult part. We're talking about from now until you die. I mean, even when you're here or you're talking with a friend, we leave this class and someone comes up to you and starts talking to you, listening to what they're saying, and then looking for a need to serve. Because when you look for a need to serve, you're taking your eyes off yourself and listening. You're making that person more important than yourself. That's the challenge in music. That was my thing. I had to really work on that. Really worked on my listening and would practice it every moment. And then I'd lose it and I'd correct it. So it's something I really worked on. So what are you working on? What's your problem?
I have problem when I my all-time.
Say it say it in your language. This young man from the UK.
Когда я имею какую-то проблему, я начинаю постоянно о ней думать, просто все время, даже когда я не играю на саксофоне. Это очень мне мешает, как от этого избавиться.
So when he has a problem with his playing on saxophone, he starts thinking about it all the time, even when he's not practicing, not playing it, and it's disturbing for him in his life, like beside music. So he wants to how to concentrate on your playing problems while you practice and don't think about it when you don't practice.
Ah, so when he's not practicing, he worries about.
Yeah, and it disturbs him.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's, in a way, that's caring about what you're doing. I'm trying to identify with that personally. For me, it was part of the process. In other words, if I was having trouble with music, I would think about it when I wasn't practicing. But I would also try to figure out how to do it in my mind to solve the problem, as opposed to just worrying about it. Like if I was having a fingering problem, and I had to get from point A to point B, I would try to work it out in my mind before I went to bed at night. Before I slept, it was the last thing I thought of. That's constructive in a way, because you're practicing. You're not just worrying about it. You know, it's like I told Liza that you are who you are. You can't do any more than what you can do. You do your best. But you live a life that, do you have a job, or are you just going to school?
What is?
Sometimes.
Okay. And you have friends, there's things that you enjoy doing. You've got to allow yourself space in your life to do things that's not just music, because you go nuts that way. You have to allow yourself space to do other things, and just try to discipline yourself so when you're practicing, you practice, and then when you leave the practice room, try to leave the stuff in there, unless you're going to work on it in your mind. Don't worry about it. Worrying is going to take away from the creative art form. Doing something practical, practicing and making use of your time, of your worry, is another thing. But if you just worry about it, that kind of takes away from the music. So if you're able to differentiate between the two, that might help you, between the worry and between practically doing something to solve a problem. You know, oh man, I can't do this and I can't do that. I can't do this, I can't do. I'll figure out. Now I'm going to figure out a way to do it, to get it done. Be constructive with your thoughts when you're away from music. That's all I can think of. Ask Dr. David. Okay? Does that help a little bit, do you think? That's the best I can do. You know? That's how I dealt with the same problem that I had. I think we all go through that. I don't think it's anything that's uncommon. You know, if we love what we're doing, we want to do our best and we want to be good at it. But take, how old are you? 19, 20?
17.
17. Okay. Take time. You got a lot of time. You know, part of youth is wanting things to happen right now. And we live in a society of technology, everything's speed, and what happens with that, the problem with that, there's a lot of good things about technology. I have my iPhone right here, you know, I love it. But dealing with music, I have my students, for instance, the bass students, for, how many bass students there? Bass players? Okay. So learning to play in tune, if you have an acoustic instrument, we don't have frets. And learning to play in tune is very important. So what I did, I mean, today you can push a button and have something play in tune for you. You can play with it. I took a cassette player. At that time we didn't have advanced technology. I took a cassette player and a metronome, and at that time metronomes only went down to 40. But I went to 60 and then took half of 60. So 60 is about, that's about 60. So half of these. I practice everything at 30. And I go to the piano. Oh, hi, how are you?
Oh,
Can I sit for a second? Surprise, surprise. And I started with the E major scale on my, unless you have a five string instrument, then maybe a low C or whatever, but normally it's E on the bass, right? So I would take the metronome and put it at 30. I'd go up 3 octaves. Now if I made a mistake, I'd go back again. So I was going to make sure I was going to go all the way up 3 octaves. This is not 30. And then I'd go all the way back down to where I started. So that takes time to do. Especially if you make mistakes, you gotta start over. So I had to learn to persevere. I had to learn to persevere. And once I did that, then I would play it back, and with the bow, I'd bow the note with in America it's A440. I make sure the piano was in tune. I had the metronome, which would plumb line my time, and then I had the notes that would plumb line my intonation. So as I bowed the note, I'd hear if it was in tune with the piano or not. So I'd have to shift. So it helped me with my intonation. Now, this took time to do. I just didn't open up a book and quickly go through it, or I had to write everything out. I wrote out all my own arpeggios, my diminished scale exercises, my whole tone exercises. I didn't open up a book and practice from a book. I wrote my own exercises for myself. It took time to do, but I learned to persevere, which is vital when you're improvising. To persevere, to go through rough moments, and to go through the notes when everything's not perfect. You still have to persevere for the sake of the music and the phrase. It also taught me patience, because patience in music is vital. Patience gives you the ability to allow the note to finish the phrase, and to hear the end of a phrase, and not to embellish your own phrase, but let the drummer, the piano player, the chordal instrument, or someone else finish off the phrase. So it taught me patience by going through a process like that, because that took time. Because after I did all my major scales with the various arpeggios, and then taking the major scale and just improvising in that major scale, then I took all my harmonic minor scales and did the same thing with the harmonic minors, because all your major chords come from the harmonic minor scale, as they do the melodic minor scale too. But I was a harmonic minor guy because I like the flat 6 and then up a minor 3rd to the major 7th. So that was an exercise I did to teach myself intonation and time. Natasha, how are we doing for time?
It's more than 1 hour right now.
It is? That means they have to pay me more money?
Anyone is.
No, there's no money. My trio, Circle 3 trio with Joe Manis on tenor sax. He's a graduate of the New England Conservatory in Boston. He's a great tenor player with a great sound and wonderful drummer, Charlie Doggett on drums. We're playing at the 32 Jazz Club on March 7th. Is that right? March 7th. Do you know where the 32 Jazz Club is?
Yep.
Okay, so if you want to hear me play, and hear my trio play, and hear my compositions, please come to that gig. You know? So, is there one last question we can take before I split? Yeah.
You mentioned that there's technology now that allows a lot of things.
The what?
There's technology now, like that you mentioned about YouTube, that you can use YouTube for practice. And do you think that there's might be trouble with that because people have so much information that they do not want to grab, and that it would be good for young musicians to try and copy what you did and make their own exercises? And how
Could you say it once again?
you tell that there's a massive amount of information available for people now,
Yeah,
like on the internet.
sure.
And when people start trying to digest all of that stuff, they might be having some trouble with that. And when they do, would you recommend going about that how you did and start making your own exercises? And if you would do that, how would you suggest we go about that?
You know, I had to discover that myself. I just had to find a way that was right for me. I don't think there's anything wrong with going on the internet and going through all that information. That kind of learning wasn't right for me. I had books that told me, this is the scale you use for this certain chord. And I would go and try it on piano, and most times I didn't like it. So I actually would play the chord and go to the piano, found out what I liked, and then I would transfer it to my instrument. And in one register I might like it, another register I wouldn't. So I used my ears to define what I liked or didn't like. It might not be right for someone else. It's right for me. For instance, on a sus chord, if you like a C sus, F major scale, right? That's the essence of that sus chord. Just take it up a fourth, play the major scale. Also go up a whole step and play the harmonic minor scale. That sounds good to me when I was studying chord scale relationships. Not everyone would hear it this way. I heard it this way. It was good for me. So, you know, some people might feel like they've got to do what I did, like make my own exercises. That was important for me. It might not be important for other people. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just the way I did it. There's many, many different ways of getting through this collage of learning to play jazz. And you have guest artists like myself that might come in and share with you. That's all it is, just sharing. It's not telling you that this is the right way. You know, my spiritual experience was defined for me. That's what happened to me. It's just one person sharing with you. So you as students, including myself, in life, we hear certain things. We can ascertain whether it's true or not for me, or, you know, does it work for me? And it might work and it might not work. So you have to be kind of loose with it, a little bit like you walk. Like, you know, I get up off the chair. I don't get up off the chair thinking, okay, left arm will go here, then the right foot's gonna turn a little bit this way, then I'm gonna push, and this coat has to be over this way. I don't think about that. I just get up, and then I walk, and I don't think about walking, you know. I just do it because I know how to walk now. And so, and we, as jazz musicians, to learn to play music that way, so we can just listen and respond to what's going on at the moment. I think working on things that will teach you to listen and to be aware of what's going on at the moment. You know, not just when you're picking up your instrument, you're the same person all the time. So the victory to overcoming, the victory to listening, the victory to responding creatively to what you hear, it doesn't just happen on the bandstand, it happens every moment of your life, I think.
Thank you
I'm-
so much.
So I hope that we will see, I don't know if all of you could fit at the Jazz Club 32. It's pretty small. But if you're able to come out and support the music and hear my band and my music, I think you might enjoy it. You know. Okay, thank you.